I think what Honorable Mutapo said should be understood in that way, that you cannot afford to remove a female judge. The Judicial Commission has actually a case before the Human Rights Commission that it has not met its constitutional obligation to meet gender balance when it comes to the bench. And for sure, wherever the Chief Justice is, he must be extremely worried that in what he's trying to do to recruit more females to the bench, we come to reduce them and make the Judicial Service Commission to fail in meeting its gender balance. So it's a valid point which you can't falter. And we cannot be the ones that actually contribute to removing women from the bench. We ought to help the bench to have as many women as possible. The second issue is that, which I accept I was not here, and I would have put it before Judge Weiner, that if we're confronted with two capable women, the other one being a white woman, the other one being a black woman, will we be fair to appoint a black woman given the historical background of this country? So, does this help us to transform society when we've got many other black qualified females with a qualified white female, overlook these black qualified females and appoint a white female? You are actually reversing the gains of transformation. So we must not shy away from even looking at the racial issue when we consider this matter. So we are a country that comes from difficult past, and every decision we make should actually seek to reverse the imbalances created by the previous regime. So black African women are equally found here, and we're looking at a white woman against black women who suffered triple oppression. And if, as it were, I think that on the basis of those two arguments, we shouldn't even consider. Let's look at other names. Thanks very much, Chairperson. You know what came to my mind and why I object to this honorable judge is because he refused to answer the question on rape protest which happened at the IEC. And you know, the issue of rape is a very, very, very difficult issue in our society. Now, you have a man who's now considered to be given such a huge responsibility, the man of the poor as prescribed here, who has got no opinion about rape culture in South Africa. Twice, Honorable Shivambu puts the question to him. He never budges. Women, generally, who are the victims of this rape culture, should themselves be extremely worried that you are going to have a public protector who's got no opinion on rape, who's got no opinion about how women got treated at the IEC when they were protesting against the rape culture in South Africa. He unashamedly twice refused to budge on it. And this is supposed to be a man of honor, a responsible person. Whereas he himself has got the dark cloud hanging over him on the rape issue, which he had the platform to deal with it and show the whole of society how he feels about this terrible pain of rape culture in South Africa. The man didn't say anything. His temper, if there is anything to go by, there's nothing for the poor there. Because the poor raises extremely petty things if you go through what those people always say. And sometimes you are going to have to listen to some of the things which you think they're extremely useless, yet they are very important to poor people. And with such a man who's so impatient, a man who just speaks the way he so wishes and disrespects members of parliament to a point where he had to apologize. Can you imagine if such a person is going to deal with an ordinary poor person where there are no cameras? Now he's apologizing because cameras are before him. Imagine him in a squatter camp in Situata, interacting with poor people, behaving in a manner he displayed here. He will never apologize because there will not be anyone to say to him, apologize, this is unacceptable. If a person can behave in such a way in front of the whole nation, can you imagine what that person does in a private space where there is no authority? Speaking to members of parliament like he's speaking to his subjects. Everyone who appears before this house must know these are representatives of the people, and at all times you must treat them with respect. But because for sure he's got some guarantees somewhere that this is his, he even treats members of parliament with disrespect. We cannot create such precedents. But the last point I want to make is that, you know, feminists and gender activists should always be jealous when a female is replaced by a male. It's also undermining the transformation we are pursuing. We had a successful female public protector, and all of us should be wishing to have another female succeeding that public protector, so that we prove to the doomsayers that indeed women are capable of holding strategic positions in society and making those positions to be successful. So I'm appealing that if anything, we cannot replace this successful public protector with Judge Desai based on those. After listening to the interview of this candidate, I tip off that she's actually a candidate for President Zuma, and that Zuma prefers her over others. And I couldn't, you know, through how she presented herself, even buy into that argument. But I also had to immediately remember that Zuma is going at some point. And therefore, we couldn't be all the time we're supposed to make decisions. Make decisions as if Zuma is a permanent president of this country. So she's going to be a president beyond Zuma's term. I mean, she's going to be a public protector beyond Zuma's term of office. So even if she was Zuma's preferred candidate, he will not be there at some point. But also that we're appointing her to an institution, a well-established institution, which has got rules and established practices and independent investigators. And if she tries any shenanigans, the institution itself will expose her for who she is. And that's what makes me to be comfortable to recommend her that she gets appointed. I know many things were said about Chief Justice before he became Chief Justice, and how he's so close to the president and all those type of politics. And today he came out to be one of the best. And it looks like today when people want to reject you, they just say, no, Zuma this, Zuma that, and then we run like you've got leprosy. Even when you have performed well in an interview. I think just Honorable Bongo put her under huge pressure, and I thought she was going to break and become emotional and all that, because I was interested to see how she's going to come back on those things. And she came back nicely, in a cool-headed manner, clarified. And that's what you need. You need people who, even when put under a difficult situation, they still manage to rise above and provide leadership. If anything, she's very close to what we have today in Honorable Tulima Donsela. So wherever she is, if she's indeed very close to President Zuma, please run away from those things and concentrate on office of the public protector and serve our people, because I agree that we must recommend it.
Honorable Shivambu.
No, thanks, Chair. I think just take it like that. If we're appointing deputies as well, we're going to appoint her as a deputy public protector. She's very good, and I think that she did very well, and she knows what she stands for. Even the issue of accessibility, she had a detailed framework of how she's going to deal with that, which I think is the most important component in terms of how we must deal with the PP's office. Sure.
Honorable Shivambu, you bestow on yourself some prerogatives that you don't have. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. You know, in one of his responses to the question of funding model for the public protectors.
Honorable Shivambu, I've just been disturbed by Honorable Breitenbach. You are noted. You will come after Honorable Motapo. And don't interrupt. But you did this thing to me and exploiting the fact that you are sitting in front of me. Okay. Honorable Shivambu.
No, thanks. I was saying that in one of his responses to the question about the funding model, Professor Majola said, when I was at the Legal Resources Center, I also did a lot of fundraising. And then he said that, so if I am public protector, I'll go back to some of the foundations that I had a good rapport with and explain to them the South Africa's democracy and that it's growing and that it needs strengthening. And then he said that I suspect that there will be governments that will be willing to avail some funding. For that reason, a public protector candidate who even imagines that we're going to look for foreign funding to finance a public protector's office must fall. It's as simple as that. He must not be considered for anything. He must go and rethink properly. I was not also impressed by his lack of attention to details in terms of how the public protector's office is structured, what resources it needs, where that money is going to come from. Because when we asked him questions, he says that, well, I'm not aware how the finances work there. I will be briefed if I'm appointed.
Chair, I'm worried that the Honorable Advocate can say it is acceptable for a person to just come here and answer the questions by just saying. He was just saying. I mean, how do you accept people who are just saying? Because here you ought to speak to the operations of the office and know what you can do and cannot do. Now, it really confirms what Honorable Shivambu said, that he had no idea what that office is about. And hitting the ground running means you must know what is expected from you. So we can't have a candidate who's still going to be taught that, no, you can't go and raise money from outside the country, from other agencies. That's not a place to learn. We need people who are going to take over from the current public protector. And the issue of having participated in the struggle, especially during those difficult times, when Tefluop, the whole of Tefluop, was involved in a struggle. There's literally not a single person in Tefluop who has not contributed, who was there at the time. But you've got such a person. He thought this was normal. The government had to do what the government was doing. Tefluop was converted into a military base. The guy didn't see anything wrong. That's why he couldn't even take his rightful place in the struggle. So, thank you.
I just want to get a a view from those who were feeling strongly about Judge Wena, whether we should keep her or whether we should drop her at this stage. I wanted to see the parties. Which parties are saying we must keep Judge Wena? Okay, so I'm taking it that we are agreeing that she's going. Okay, let's move on to Judge Desai. There were parties. No, members. Honorable Malema, you know we had some peace here. We had some peace. Yeah. Okay. Listen, we had arguments for and against for Judge Desai. And I want to ask those that had advanced the argument for Judge Desai whether they agree to stand him down.
Let him not lose his benefits.
Okay, members are saying let him keep the benefits. Okay, so Judge Desai falls. Okay. Advocate B. Mkhwebane, we had those that were, in fact, almost every day you had a lot to say that's positive about her. But for those that felt that we shouldn't consider her, are they persuaded to consider her? Okay, the DA is not persuaded.
No, I'm not
No,
voting,
he's
I'm
not
stating our
voting.
position. Thank you.
No, he's not
Now
voting.
we're voting, Chair.
Hang on a second.
Now we're voting. Those who are not voting must keep quiet.
We must start
Including me,
with you.
yes.
We must start
But I
with
was
you.
checking, yes.
But we must start with you. Okay. Breitenbach or Van Dam, one of you. Okay, Honorable Breitenbach.
We're reserving our position on this candidate.
They are reserving the time money. There has been a lot of suggestion that yes, in future she may be considered, you know, but not necessarily at this stage. Is that the agreement, members? Okay, and Prof. Majola, there were arguments for and against, and what is the feeling of the House, especially for those that were pushing for this particular candidate? Are you persuaded to keep him, or are you persuaded to drop him? Okay, so we have the DA that has reserved its comment on Mkhwebane, and they would like to keep Prof. Majola. And members, I don't want to subject this process to a vote. To me, it's very clear that all the parties are in agreement with Advocate Mkhwebane. Is that okay, except for the DA, and I think we will have to capture that as such. Okay. Is this the final decision of the committee that Advocate Mkhwebane is the name that we are going to table to the National Assembly to be voted for by the National Assembly? And members, I must also remind you, this position requires 60% of the members of the National Assembly, which means that it requires 240 members, and the ANC has 249.
You must be there.
Oh, wow. Hang on a sec.
You'll never get them all there on the same
No,
day.
but you know what? Let's be honest. Okay, members. Okay, if that is
Please reflect that we don't agree with that.
No, I accept that. We've noted you, members. I think. Let me just say this, members. I'm not taking your contributions lightly, and I think one has to appreciate that this was not an easy process, and for you to have been able to at least agree to even concede where you thought there were strong arguments against your own favorable candidate. To me, that is a sign of maturity, and I congratulate you for that. And members, except for the DA, we are going to take the report to the House.